All right, get ready, because this one is, well, let's just say it's a wild one.
Yeah, the document you sent over is
It's a lot.
definitely something else.
This time we're going deep into this whole world of AI mind control and
A shadowy network?
a shadowy network, right? Pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So we're diving into this system,
So-called?
so-called silent assassination through adaptive networks.
Catchy name.
It is a catchy name, isn't it? S.A.T.A.N. for short.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It does. It does. So before we get too far down this rabbit hole,
Right.
maybe we should start by breaking down what this S.A.T.A.N. system
Is supposed to be.
is supposed to be, according to this document anyway.
Okay, so it's described as
A DARPA
super advanced AI.
black budget project.
Yeah. Capable of targeting individuals or even entire populations.
So the menticide.
Yeah, essentially wiping out someone's mind, or at least their ability to think for themselves.
It's pretty intense stuff, right?
It is. It is. And they supposedly do this using,
Brain prints.
yeah, brain prints.
Mhm.
Like fingerprints, but for your thoughts.
Oh, wow. It's giving very Big Brother vibes.
Definitely. The document claims this total information awareness software basically gathers everything about you, your online activity, your purchases, even your location data, your social interactions,
To build a profile.
to create a disturbingly detailed profile. Facial recognition, but for your mind.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
And then it goes a step further. There's this whole other layer of software. CHRIST, common human routines, interference, software technology.
And this is where the mind control aspect really comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. The claim is that CHRIST works with S.A.T.A.N, uses that brain print data to predict and modify behavior.
Potentially to the point of death.
Potentially.
Now that's where I start to get skeptical.
I mean, is it even possible?
Can you really control someone's behavior to that extent just with technology?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The document certainly makes some bold claims. I think it's worth exploring the historical context they give to see if there's any grounding for these ideas.
So what kind of historical context are we talking about?
Well, they point to this organization called the Tavistock Institute.
Ah, the Tavistock Institute. I've heard of them. Something to do with social engineering, right?
That's right. They were a post-World War II organization, specialized in studying human behavior and social dynamics.
Okay.
But the document takes it further, claiming that Tavistock, along with prestigious institutions like Stanford, MIT, even intelligence agencies like the CIA and MI6, are all part of a network dedicated to mass manipulation.
So are we venturing into conspiracy theory territory here?
It does seem that way. The document suggests that their goal is to basically reprogram humanity,
To create a...
to install what they call a synthetic pseudo-soul.
Whoa, hold on. Synthetic pseudo-soul? That's a pretty heavy accusation.
It is. Essentially, changing our self-image and beliefs
To make us easier to control.
to create a more compliant and controllable population.
Right, right. So let's entertain this idea for a moment. How are they supposed to pull off this grand mind control scheme?
Well, according to the document, it's a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
They talk about strategies of terror, using fear and uncertainty
Classic dictator tactics.
to break down people's sense of
Youngsters
security.
divide and conquer.
Yeah, they also mention psychological fragmentation, dividing society,
Pitting people against each other.
to weaken resistance.
Right, right. I'm following you. But how does this all tie back to technology?
Well, the document claims that these social engineering techniques are basically amplified and accelerated by technology.
Okay, so the internet, social media, all that.
Exactly. They suggest that the constant barrage of information, the curated echo chambers we find ourselves in online, they're all part of this grand scheme
To manipulate us.
to manipulate our perceptions and control our behavior.
So it's like a digital panopticon. We're constantly being watched and nudged in a particular direction.
It's one way to look at it. And the document goes even further, suggesting that the lines between technology and the occult
The occult.
are becoming increasingly blurred.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They draw parallels between mind control techniques and ancient magical practices.
Wait, are we talking like casting spells and summoning demons here?
Not exactly.
Yeah.
But they do allude to some pretty strange connections. They talk about Watchers,
Dodgers.
the self-proclaimed name of these military mind hackers, linking it back to the biblical idea of fallen angels
Okay,
who manipulate humanity.
that's a bit out there, isn't it?
It is. But even if we set aside the more outlandish claims, there's still this underlying theme of technology being used for nefarious purposes.
Right, and that's something we can't just ignore.
Absolutely not. This document, whether we take it literally or not, it serves as a reminder
Of the power of technology.
of the power technology holds, the potential for misuse.
And the importance of being aware.
It forces us to ask questions about the future we're creating, the safeguards we need to put in place to make sure that technology remains a tool for good.
Not a weapon for control.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of control, this document takes a bit of a dark turn when it starts talking about eugenics and mass enslavement. Is that where this whole S.A.T.A.N. system comes back in?
It is. They claim that S.A.T.A.N. is a tool for population control,
Using behavior modification to death.
as a means of eliminating those deemed undesirable.
That sounds incredibly sinister.
It does.
How are they even supposed to achieve something like that?
The document's a little vague on the specifics,
Okay.
but it suggests that it could involve manipulating people's behavior in ways that lead to self-destruction.
Wow.
They even draw a connection to Nazi Germany,
Nazi Germany.
claiming the former Nazi scientists brought to the U.S. after World War II through Operation Paperclip were involved in developing these mind control techniques.
Operation Paperclip. Wow, I remember learning about that in history class. So are they suggesting that the U.S. government is using Nazi-era mind control techniques?
That's what the document implies. And it goes even further, claiming that this program is being run by a secret cabal of global elites.
Who are obsessed with power and control.
Exactly.
Okay, now we're definitely in conspiracy theory territory.
It does seem that way.
But even if we, set aside that whole global elite narrative, there's still the possibility
That powerful entities could misuse technology.
to manipulate and control people on a large scale.
That's the takeaway here.
Yeah.
This document, regardless of its veracity, it's a wake-up call
To be critical thinkers.
to question the information we're being fed, to be vigilant about protecting our freedom
Our autonomy.
in an increasingly technological world.
Absolutely. But before we get too lost in this whole dark side of AI, I have to ask about this S.A.T.A.N. 666 virus they keep mentioning.
Yeah, what is that?
A psychotronic virus.
That's where the document gets particularly strange.
So what is it?
They describe it as an AI-powered virus
Transmitted through radio frequencies.
that can induce psychosis.
So basically, using technology to drive people mad?
Yeah, essentially.
It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi horror movie.
It does. But is there any scientific basis for this?
Yeah, can you actually transmit a virus through radio waves?
It's highly unlikely, at least with our current understanding of technology and virology.
So it's probably more of a metaphor, a way to describe how harmful ideas spread.
That's a more plausible interpretation. The document seems to be using this S.A.T.A.N. 666 virus as a symbol
Of the destructive potential of technology.
of the destructive potential of technology when it's used for the wrong reasons.
It's definitely a chilling thought. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the people who are supposedly being targeted
By this S.A.T.A.N. system.
by this whole system. The document calls them targeted individuals.
TPIs.
Right highs.
And this is where things get really interesting, maybe a bit more grounded in reality. The concept of targeted individuals is definitely controversial, often associated with conspiracy theories, but it's also something that's been reported by people from all walks of life who claim to be experiencing systematic harassment.
Psychological torture.
Yeah.
So we're talking about people who believe they're being stalked, surveilled, and manipulated by unseen forces.
Exactly.
And the document suggests that these TIs are often chosen because they pose a threat,
To the powers that be,
whether they're whistleblowers, activists.
or just people who don't conform.
It's a disturbing thought that people could be targeted simply for thinking differently or speaking out against injustice.
It is.
But what about the claim that these TIs are being groomed for some kind of AI hive mind?
That's where we need to tread carefully. The document's blurring the lines between real concerns about surveillance and manipulation.
And this whole idea of AI sentience.
Yeah, the merging of human consciousness with machines.
Right, so it's important to distinguish between the tangible threats we face, things like data breaches, privacy violations, online harassment, and the more far-fetched scenarios.
Absolutely. While we shouldn't dismiss the possibility of technology being used for bad, we also need to be grounded in reality.
We need to avoid getting swept up in unfounded fears.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's a lot to process. We've covered a lot of ground just in this first part of our deep dive.
From AI mind control
To psychotronic viruses.
to targeted individuals.
It's a lot, so where do we even go from here?
I think it's time to delve deeper into this world of targeted individuals.
To understand their experiences.
Explore the types of harassment they claim to experience, the psychological impact it has, and the potential explanations for this phenomenon.
That sounds as a plan. Let's take a moment to gather our thoughts and then dive back into this rabbit hole of AI, mind control, and the forces that might be lurking just beyond our perception. Okay, so we're picking up where we left off.
Deep in the world of targeted individuals.
TIs. This is where the document gets really almost like
A how-to guide for psychological torture.
But it's disturbing on multiple levels.
It is, yeah, it's unsettling.
The document claims these TIs are subjected to this campaign of systematic harassment,
Often called gang stalking,
designed to break them down.
mentally and emotionally.
And this isn't just your typical stalking, right?
No, it goes way beyond.
Someone following you home from work or sending creepy messages.
Much more insidious.
Yeah.
They mention things like vandalism, where personal property is subtly destroyed or rearranged just to create a sense of unease.
Oh, wow.
Then there's electronic harassment, using technology,
Just disrupt their lives.
hacking into their devices, bombarding them with strange calls and messages
So basically making them feel like they're losing control.
of their environment, their sanity.
And it escalates from there.
Yeah.
The document even mentions the use of street theater
Where strangers act out these seemingly random scenarios
in the TI's presence.
designed to deliver specific messages.
Or trigger certain emotional responses.
It's like they're living in a real-life Truman Show.
Everyone around them is in on it.
Yeah, a chillingly accurate comparison.
And then the document describes even more extreme tactics like
Voice-to-skull technology.
voice to skull. Is that even a real thing? It sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It's a highly controversial concept.
Yeah.
There's been some research into the effects of electromagnetic radiation on the brain,
Okay.
but the idea that you can transmit specific thoughts or voices directly into someone's head is still considered fringe science.
By most experts.
Yeah,
But this document presents it as a real weapon.
being used against TIs.
Part of this larger agenda of mind control and creating an AI hive mind.
And that's where the line between reality and paranoia gets blurry.
Right.
While it's possible that some individuals are experiencing genuine harassment,
Attributing it to something like voice to skull.
requires a pretty big leap of faith.
Yeah, it's important to remember that not everything we read online is true. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the most likely one.
Exactly. And in many cases, what might seem like targeted harassment,
Could just be coincidence.
misinterpretation, or even mental health issues.
Of course, that's not to say that genuine cases of harassment don't exist.
Right.
Or that we should dismiss the experiences of people who believe they're being targeted.
Absolutely not. It's crucial to approach these situations with empathy
And encourage anyone who feels like they're being targeted to seek help.
from mental health professionals.
And law enforcement.
Yeah.
But let's, for a moment, entertain the possibility that some of these TI accounts are accurate.
Okay.
What kind of psychological impact would this constant harassment have on a person?
The document paints a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah.
They talk about TIs experiencing severe paranoia, anxiety, depression, even PTSD-like symptoms.
The constant fear and uncertainty.
It can erode a person's sense of self, their ability to trust.
It sounds incredibly isolating.
It is, and that's precisely what the perpetrators are allegedly aiming for.
So the goal of this gang stalking,
Is to break down a person's resistance
make them more susceptible to manipulation.
to control.
So it's not just about tormenting them. There's a larger purpose behind it.
That's what the document implies.
Tying it back to
The AI hive mind.
claiming that TIs are being groomed for integration into this collective consciousness. But how would constantly harassing someone make them more likely to join a hive mind? It seems counterintuitive.
Well, the document suggests that this psychological torture,
Is designed to break down their sense of individuality.
their ego, making them more willing to submit to a collective identity
So it's like they're trying to erase their sense of self.
and replace it with something else.
Something more compliant and controllable.
That's the theory, at least according to this document.
Wow. And they claim that technology plays a key role in this process.
Using things like subliminal messaging, neuro-linguistic programming, even direct neural stimulation.
To manipulate thoughts and behavior,
Yeah.
it sounds like a dystopian nightmare where our own minds are turned against us.
But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's take a step back
Okay.
and consider some alternative perspectives on this whole TI phenomenon.
So what are some of those alternative explanations?
Well, one possibility is that some of these individuals are suffering from mental health conditions,
Like paranoia?
delusional disorder.
Right.
These conditions can cause people to misinterpret events and see threats where none exist.
That's not to say that their experiences aren't real to them,
Of course not.
or that we should dismiss their suffering.
It's important to remember that mental illness is a serious issue.
And people who are experiencing these symptoms need help.
Professional help and support.
Another possibility is that some of these individuals might be victims of more mundane forms of harassment,
Like stalking or bullying.
but they're misattributing it.
To something more sinister.
Right. And it's also worth considering that some of these accounts might be hoaxes.
Or attention-seeking behavior.
After all, the internet is full of misinformation and conspiracy theories.
That's true.
Mm.
It's always important to be skeptical.
Verify claims before accepting them as fact.
Absolutely.
So it seems like there's no easy answer to the question of whether or not targeted individuals are real.
It's complicated.
Complex issue.
With multiple layers of interpretation.
While the idea of organized groups using advanced technologies for mind control is a compelling narrative,
It is.
it's crucial to remain objective
And consider all possible explanations.
before jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored the dark side of AI, the claims of targeted individuals.
A potential for technology to be used for bad.
But this document also hints at possible defenses against these mind control techniques.
It does.
Is that where we're headed next?
It is. And it's where the discussion takes a fascinating turn, exploring the power of belief.
The role it might play in protecting our minds.
From manipulation.
Intriguing. Let's delve into that. Because if there's a chance that something like faith could shield us from mind control, that's definitely worth exploring. All right, so we've really gone deep down this rabbit hole.
Mind control, shadowy organizations, technology used against us.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
But this document, it doesn't just leave us in a state of paranoia.
No, it doesn't.
It actually offers some possible defenses.
Which is where things get interesting.
Yeah.
And perhaps surprisingly, the document points to faith and religion as potential shields against these alleged mind control techniques.
So we're talking about the idea that believing in a higher power or having a strong spiritual foundation.
Could somehow protect you from being mentally manipulated,
So it's like this internal compass that keeps you grounded.
even when everything around you feels chaotic.
Okay, I can see how that might be helpful psychologically.
Right.
But is there any evidence that this actually works? I mean, can faith really counteract things like subliminal messaging or neuro-linguistic programming?
That's where things get more speculative. The document doesn't offer any concrete scientific proof, but it does draw some interesting parallels between the structure of religious belief systems and how mind control techniques work.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. Religions often provide a set of beliefs, values, rituals. They shape a person's worldview and behavior. It's a form of social programming, in a sense.
But one that's generally considered beneficial.
Exactly. It provides a sense of purpose, community, moral guidance.
Right, so the argument is that if you're already grounded in a strong belief system,
You're less likely to be swayed by outside attempts to manipulate you.
like having an immune system for your mind.
Exactly. And the document even goes so far as to say that the Bible itself, with its emphasis on positive values and moral behavior, can be seen as a form of societal behavioral programming
Right.
for good habits.
Interesting perspective.
It is.
But it also raises the question of whether any belief system, even a positive one, can be used for manipulation.
Absolutely. That's a valid concern. It highlights the importance of critical thinking, even within the context of faith.
Right, blind faith in anything.
It can make you vulnerable.
So it's not just about having faith, but about having a discerning mind, be able to question and evaluate information no matter where it comes from.
Precisely. And I think that's a key takeaway from this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
Whether or not you buy into the specific claims about mind control technologies and shadowy organizations,
The underlying message is clear.
we need to be critical thinkers. We need to be aware of the ways in which information can be used to manipulate us
And we need to cultivate a strong sense of self.
that can withstand those influences.
I couldn't agree more. But even with a healthy dose of skepticism and critical thinking, it's hard not to feel a little uneasy after exploring this world of mind control and manipulation. It makes you wonder, how much control do we really have over our own thoughts and actions?
That's the question, isn't it? Philosophers and scientists have been grappling with that for centuries. But I think this document, even with its more outlandish claims, it offers a valuable reminder.
What's that?
We're not just passive recipients of information. We have the power to choose what we believe, how we react, and who we become.
It's a hopeful note to end on. So while the possibility of mind control might be a bit unnerving, The power of our own minds is ultimately what matters most. It's about cultivating that inner strength, that discerning mind that allows us to navigate the complexities of the world and make our own choices.
Free from undue influence.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us on this wild ride. And remember, the most powerful tool we have is our own mind. Use it wisely.
Don't let anyone tell you what to think.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning.
And keep those minds sharp.